Hello and welcome to another of these ACT prep videos. Today we are going to talk about subject and object of a sentence, and then we are going to get into a little bit of a discussion about pronouns. So to get us started, if you watched last week's video, you should know that the subject of a sentence is the person or the thing that does the verb in the sentence. It is who or what the sentence is about. The object of the sentence is the person or thing that the subject is acting upon. So, for instance, let's go back to our classic example, the boy kicked the ball. In this sentence, the boy is the subject, kicked is the verb, and then the ball is the object because that is the thing that the verb is acting upon, that the subject is acting upon. Now let's look at this sentence. The boy kicked the ball. Here, the boy is the subject, the ball is the object, and then kicked is the verb. Let's look at another one though. The Utah Jazz were beaten by the Golden State Warriors. I'm sorry, Jazz fans. The Warriors are kind of a dynasty right now. Maybe one day we'll get them. But if we break this down, the Utah Jazz looks like it's going to be the subject, but it's not. The subject is actually Golden State Warriors. Here's why. The Golden State Warriors are the ones who are actually doing the verb, which is beating. The Golden State Warriors beat the Utah Jazz is another way to say this sentence. So, because of that, the Golden State Warriors are the subject here. They are the one doing the action, performing the verb. Just because they come at the end of the sentence does not mean that they are the object. In this case, the Utah Jazz are, because they are the ones receiving the verb. So, when you're looking at subject and object, it's important to make sure that you know who is doing the verb, who or what is actually performing the verb. Now let's talk a little bit about pronouns. In English, our pronouns change depending on whether the pronoun is the subject of the sentence or the object of the sentence. Now that sounds crazy, but you already know what this means. If you speak English, you already do this naturally, so it shouldn't be too much of a shocker to you. But look at this list. If you want to pause here and take a screenshot, that might be helpful for you. You don't have to though. But if we look at some of these pronouns, we can see how they change. So for instance, I versus me. If you are talking about yourself and you are the subject of the sentence that you're saying, then you are going to use the word I. But if you are the object, you are going to say me. You can see how these change. You actually doesn't change, it stays the same, but he turns into him, she turns into her, we turn into us, they turn into them, who turns into whom? Now, like I said, if you speak English, this is already relatively familiar to you. However, there are a couple that trip up native English speakers, and we're going to look at those. It's the I versus me and who versus whom. Now, I can pretty much guarantee that the ACT will test you on these, so make sure you stick with me here. Let's look at this first example together, and let's try and find the error. The tourist asked my friends and I for directions. What do you think? Where is our error? Now, if you use your process of deduction, whether or not you know grammar, you could probably guess that I'm going to point out that I. And here's the reason. It is in the object place in this sentence. The subject of this sentence is the tourists. They are the ones performing the verb, which is asked. My friends and I are the object. So, in that case, this sentence should say the tourist asked my friends and me for directions. The tourist asked my friends and me for directions. Make sure that when you are talking about yourself, if you are doing so in the object of the sentence, make sure you say me. If you are doing so in the subject of the sentence, make sure you say I. Let's move on. Find the error in this one. I do not know who I will take to prom. Always tricky, right? Don't want to mess up prom night. Let's see what our error is. It's that who. Now, you probably could have guessed that. I set you up for that answer. You should have been able to piece it together on your own. Let's explain why, though. I is the subject of the sentence. That one is correct. We already talked about that. I is the subject of the sentence. Who is the object here? Because I do not know. Know is our first verb in this sentence. I do not know. Who is our object? In that case, it needs to be whom. We have to throw that M at the end. Now, if you're still confused, that's okay. Feel free to talk to me. I'm also going to be posting some helpful links in this video's description, so check those out if you need them.